What's happening, people? It's your boy Zachoy back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about probably the fastest, if not one of the fastest ways to get rid of depression. I'm not necessarily saying this is a be-all end-all cure to depression. I mean, I think depression is very different case by case, person to person. However, I have been somebody that in my past I have suffered tremendously from depression and anxiety, and I have been able to overcome those feelings, that illness, through many different methods. Now, today I'm going to be talking about one method which kind of encompasses a lot of different methods. And what this is the dopamine fast. Dopamine fasting is quite simply the process of eliminating things that trigger dopamine and serotonin in your brain. So that is pretty much, that's a lot of different things, but we're going to be focusing on very fundamental activities that, supply a lot of those brain chemicals. I came across dopamine fasting of my own accord, as I feel like a lot of people do, in that I recognized that there were things that I was doing every single day, essentially habits that I had that were not serving me well. These are activities that were supplying me with very intense pleasurable emotion. However, afterward, they would kind of sap my mind of those positive brain chemicals. They would really, that much intensity would pull away from the rest of my life experience. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be the most intense experiences. Now, these might be things that you don't even consider to be very intense. However, when you really break it down, they are, in fact, flooding your brain with dopamine and serotonin for very short periods of time and sapping you from those emotions and taking away from the rest of your life experience. What is a dopamine fast? A dopamine fast is when you take a certain amount of time and you step away from those kind of activities. So let me give you a rundown of the activities that I'm talking about. The most intense activity is anything sexual. So any kind of sexual experience, that being intercourse with somebody else, that being, kind of sexual play with somebody else. Now that might also be sexual play with yourself. So masturbating, especially, that's a huge one. So these kind of activities are things that you will be stepping away from for a period of time, however long you dopamine fast. The next biggest one is definitely screens. So any kind of internet access, Netflix, YouTube, listening to music, absorbing any kind of content through a screen is going to supply your brain with a ton of dopamine. Your positive energy receptors are going to be going off, and then that is taking away from just regular life. So you are not going to feel as fulfilled just being. We're talking about sex energy and screen time are probably the two biggest things that are supplying you with a ton of dopamine and then taking away from the other aspects of your life. Other such things, even reading, even kind of strenuous exercise, eating, all of these things during a dopamine fast you're not going to do. Some people say that light exercise is okay. Some eating is okay during a dopamine fast, but the reality is that if it is a true dopamine fast, you are going to try to stay away from things that are regularly supplying you with dopamine, okay? And not necessarily going out and trying new things that other people do to gain exhilaration, to feel tons of positive energy. Warm showers. That's one that really sucks when you're doing a dopamine fast to get rid of, but if you're used to showering in hot water especially, but it's part of a dopamine fast, and I would recommend that you cut that out if you're going to be serious about dopamine fasting. Hanging out with friends. Any kind of social engagement is something that is going to make you feel positive energy, okay? So, what are the things that we've talked about so far? Sex energy, screens, activities like reading, listening to music, warmth of showers, hot water, and food, and social engagement. All of these things you're going to want to try to step away from when you take a dopamine fast. The idea of doing the dopamine fast is that when you take some time away from these things and you focus back on just being in life, things will tend to get better. You will tend to find more enjoyment in the present moment. And that is so much of meditation and mindfulness, and finding positivity in the long run is to find that sense of comfort, that sense of fulfillment in the present moment. How long should you dopamine fast? I have never done a true dopamine fast for longer than 2 days. I know a lot of people out here on YouTube claim that they've done it for 10 days, 30 days. That to me is just like, that's overkill. I mean, for some of us, we are working, right? We have jobs, we have obligations that we have got to attend to, and so we are not really able to take that much time away from social engagement, take that time away from looking at screens. And I think it gets to a point when your dopamine fast becomes a process of literally denying yourself. I think it's important to deny yourself to some extent, and that's why I recommend doing a dopamine fast for 24 hours or 48 hours. However, the longer you're going to get to a point where you just can't go any longer. I mean, if you can, I'm not saying there's necessarily anything bad about that. In fact, I think there are a tremendous amount of benefits of prolonging a dopamine fast. However, I'm really talking about this from the perspective of the average person who is not necessarily feeling in their best state, from somebody who feels like there could be more to life, to feeling fulfilled. And I think doing a dopamine fast for 24 hours or 48 hours is the fastest way to essentially cure depression, to feel as though you are in a place of feeling fulfilled, of feeling like you are the person that you want to be and you're in control of your life. Like I said, I'm not going to cover any other habits or strategies to curing depression. I have a video on cold showers, and that's another great thing. That's probably literally the fastest thing you can do to feel better, to feel more into the present moment. However, the dopamine fast is kind of like the prescription for something that is going to take a little bit longer but is going to work magic fast. And if you're somebody that really needs that, I recommend dopamine fasting. Like I said, I haven't ever gone longer than 48 hours, and during that 48 hours, I don't even know if I would necessarily consider it a dopamine fast, being that it was camping. And that's just the amount of time that I probably went without looking at a phone or listening to music. I've done overnight camping trips that were 2 weeks and longer. However, I was reading books and I was listening to music sometimes, singing with my friends, hanging out with my friends. 48 hours is probably the longest period of time that I have gone myself, no contact, nobody else, nothing else but a journal in my hand and the woods. And even that, nature is something that can bring us a lot of positivity, so it's something that I would maybe not specifically avoid on a dopamine fast, but be considerate of how that's making you feel, and that is making you feel good. The takeaways from a dopamine fast: you are not going to be able to avoid all dopamine, and that's a great thing. At the end of the day, you are going to find pleasure from even, you're going to start finding pleasure from the littlest things, like I said, being outside, being around other people. I say that you should avoid social interaction, but you're not going to be able to completely avoid it, and you're going to find that your interactions with other people might be even a little bit more positive. All of these things are things that you should take mental note of, and even journal. I recommend journaling during a dopamine fast, just because you are going to see another side of yourself that you might not necessarily see all the time. You're going to be finding things that you appreciate in life. You're going to be finding new ideas, new senses of being. And it's a great idea to really write those things down, save them, and the day after, a couple weeks after, you're going to be able to look back through those things and say, there are these little things that I really appreciate. And that is really the ultimate goal of the dopamine fast, is to find more appreciation for the present moment, not needing to, look at porn or look at your favorite TV show or watch the news or listen to music to find that sense of peace, to find that sense of enjoying the person, the moment, to enjoy existence. And that's the ultimate takeaway. Part of dopamine fasting, to make it even more effective, is to follow it up with other habits, like taking cold showers, like eating a vegan diet, like exercising. These are all things that I'm going to make videos about in the future, but for now, really consider what it is that brings you the most amount of pleasure, the things that maybe you are spending a lot of time doing during the day that aren't necessarily serving you the way that you would like to. And take note of that and write those things down. And then when you dopamine fast, you can consider the differences of how you feel. And maybe the day after you go right back to how you were doing things. The goal should be ultimately that you use the dopamine fast as a way to really put your life under the microscope and think about, long term, what changes do I want to make? And how are these things really going to benefit me? Because if you are able to cut out the things that are giving you instant pleasure, you really are long-term going to be a happier person. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I appreciate you checking out my channel and liking and subscribing. Leave a comment below if you want any videos in the future, and if you have any questions about dopamine fasting, I would be happy to converse with you about it. So, have a great day, peace, much love, bye-bye.